The 18th President of the United States, Ulysses Simpson Grant. His presidency left a significant mark on the country's history, especially in the context of the conclusion of the Civil War, the Reconstruction of the South, and the fight against corruption in the federal government. Grant was also one of the most famous Union generals during the war, and later became a popular president. Early years. Ulysses Grant was born on April 27, 1822, in Point Pleasant, Ohio. His full name was Hiram Ulysses Grant, but due to a mistake during his admission to the United States Military Academy at West Point, he became known as Ulysses Simpson Grant. Simpson was his mother's maiden name. From a young age, Grant showed an interest in the military and entered West Point in 1839, where he successfully completed his education. After graduating, Grant served in the U.S. Army, but his military career during peacetime was not particularly remarkable. He resigned in 1854, facing financial difficulties and problems with alcohol. The Civil War. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, Grant returned to the Army, quickly proving himself as a talented strategist and a tough commander. He became the commanding general of the Union Army in 1864 and achieved decisive victories at the Battle of Vicksburg and the Battle of Appomattox in 1865, effectively ending the war. His successes on the battlefield, including his victory over Robert E. Lee at Appomattox, made Grant a national hero. Presidency. After the war, Grant was elected as the 18th President of the United States in 1868 and was re-elected for a second term in 1872. His presidency took place during the post-war Reconstruction era, which involved rebuilding the southern states, a very challenging task. Reconstruction of the South. Grant continued the policy of Reconstruction, aimed at rebuilding the South and reintegrating former Confederates into the political life of the United States. He actively supported the rights of African Americans, signing several important laws, including the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which prohibited discrimination in public places. However, despite these efforts, racial violence and the activities of the Ku Klux Klan continued in the South. Fighting corruption. One of the biggest challenges for Grant was the widespread corruption within the federal government. His administration faced several major scandals, including fraudulent government contracts and financial schemes, such as the Credit Mobilier scandal. Although Grant was personally honest, his inability to effectively combat corruption in his government tarnished his legacy. Economic problems. Grant also faced economic difficulties, including the Panic of 1873, which led to the Great Depression of 1873-1879. This was the result of railroad speculation and financial instability. The economic problems were compounded by the high costs of Southern Reconstruction. Legends and scandals. Although Grant was known for his personal honesty, his presidency was not without scandals. Some of the most well-known events involved his inner circle. For example, his trusted associates, such as his son-in-law and close friends, were involved in several corrupt schemes, which made Grant's presidency controversial in terms of governance. Grant was also known for his firmness and decisiveness, which sometimes led to harsh consequences. One such situation was his aggressive suppression of Native American uprisings in the 1860s and 1870s, which was often criticized by civil rights advocates. Personality and legacy. Grant's personality was often seen as contradictory. On the battlefield, he was relentless and resolute, but in politics, his decisions were not always as effective. Despite his fame as a military leader, he was not as successful a president. Nevertheless, Grant remained a symbol of victory in the Civil War and made a significant contribution to the country's post-war recovery. He was also a strong advocate for equality and African American rights, making his figure important in the history of civil rights struggles. After the presidency. After completing his second term in 1877, Grant stepped away from active politics. He traveled the world, but faced financial difficulties when his business investments failed. He even wrote his memoirs, which became a classic of American literature and helped him recover from his financial crisis. Ulysses S. Grant died on July 23, 1885, from throat cancer, leaving behind a significant legacy as a victor in the Civil War and an important political figure of his time. Legacy. Grant remains one of the most debated U.S. presidents. His presidency left a mixed impression. On the one hand, he was a hero of the Civil War and a defender of African American rights. On the other hand, his presidency was marred by corruption and economic difficulties. Despite these contradictions, Ulysses Grant remains a significant figure in American history.